Ever wonder what's actually happening inside your eye during surgery?
Today, we're diving deep into the world of cataract surgery.
Specifically, a research paper comparing two techniques that use different levels of pressure.
And you might be surprised by what they found.
That's right.
We often assume that newer technology always means more aggressive techniques.
But this research challenges that assumption.
It really makes you think twice about what's happening during these incredibly precise procedures.
Okay, let's unpack this.
We're dealing with a particular type of cataract surgery
Called phacoemulsification.
with an active fluidic system.
Now, I know that sounds like a mouthful,
It is.
but essentially it boils down to using tiny vibrations to break up the cloudy lens in your eye, the cataract.
And then replacing it with an artificial lens.
The active fluidic system is like the unsung hero here.
The unsung hero.
Tell me more.
Well, this system carefully controls the fluid pressure inside your eye during the procedure.
Think of it like this.
Imagine you're watering delicate flowers.
You wouldn't want to use a pressure washer, right?
That's a good analogy.
Too much force would send those petals flying.
Precisely.
The active fluidic system acts like a gentle watering can.
Making sure the pressure inside the eye stays consistent.
And safe throughout the entire surgery.
So where does this research paper come in?
This paper asks a fascinating question.
What if, instead of using the typical higher pressure with this system,
We went lower.
could gentler fluid pressure actually be better for the eye in the long run?
Now that is a question I bet a lot of people considering cataract surgery would want the answer to.
How did they go about figuring that out?
They conducted what's called a randomized controlled trial.
The gold standard in research.
They had 27 patients, and get this,
Each patient had both eyes operated on,
one eye with the lower pressure technique.
and one with the typical higher pressure.
Talk about the perfect comparison.
Wow, having both eyes done with different techniques, that's dedication to science.
But really lets the researchers see the differences clearly.
So what did they find?
Did this lower pressure approach actually lead to better outcomes?
Well, the results were definitely eye-opening.
First off, they found that the lower pressure surgery used significantly less fluid overall.
Now, you might be thinking, okay, less fluid, so what?
But it's a bigger deal than it might seem.
Remember that gentle watering can analogy?
Right, too much force is bad. Less fluid means less pressure and turbulence inside your eye during the procedure.
Which is much gentler on those delicate structures.
So less is more in this case.
What about those other things they were measuring?
Like the corneal thickness and the health of those endothelial cells.
That's where it gets even more interesting.
The low pressure group had less corneal swelling after surgery, which makes sense.
Less pressure, less swelling.
It's almost like when you've slept funny and you wake up with a puffy face.
I've been there.
So in this case, lower pressure is like getting a good night's sleep for your eye.
Exactly.
And here's the real kicker.
The low pressure group also had less endothelial cell loss, especially in the long term.
Now those cells are tiny, but they play a vital role in keeping your cornea clear.
Imagine your cornea like a window.
Those cells are like the special coating that keeps it from getting foggy.
And if that coating gets damaged,
You guessed it.
things start to get cloudy and your vision suffers.
So protecting those cells, especially in a procedure like cataract surgery that's meant to last a lifetime, is incredibly important.
Okay, so far it seems like lower pressure is winning this face-off.
Less fluid, less swelling, happier corneal cells.
So what's the catch?
There's got to be a reason everyone isn't using the lower pressure technique, right?
You bring up a great point.
There are always trade-offs to consider, and that's what makes these findings so thought-provoking.
When they looked at the health of the retina, which sits at the back of the eye, there was no difference between the two groups.
Both techniques were equally safe for the retina.
So it's not like the higher pressure was harming the retina in this study.
That's fascinating.
So we've got this situation where lower pressure seems to be gentler on the front of the eye, especially long term.
But it doesn't seem to make a difference for the retina.
At least in this study.
And that's the key point.
This study provides a valuable piece of the puzzle, but
It doesn't necessarily give us the whole picture.
more research might be needed to see if there are subtle differences in retinal outcomes down the line.
So it's not as simple as saying higher pressure is automatically bad for the retina.
Exactly.
It's more nuanced than that.
There are potential benefits and risks to weigh with each approach.
For example, some surgeons might find that higher pressure allows them to perform the surgery more quickly.
which could be advantageous in certain situations.
Okay, so speed versus potential long-term effects that we don't fully understand yet.
It sounds like there are some tough calls to be made.
Where does this leave our listeners?
The people who might be facing cataract surgery themselves?
What should they be thinking about?
This study highlights something really important.
You have the power to be an active participant in your own eye health.
Don't be afraid to have a conversation with your eye doctor about these different techniques.
So instead of just showing up and saying, okay, doc, do your thing.
We should be asking questions.
Absolutely.
Ask your doctor what type of system they use, what
Mhm.
their experience is with different pressure settings.
And if there are any specific factors in your case that might make one approach more suitable than the other.
It's all about being informed and advocating for yourself.
Precisely.
Every eye is different.
Every patient is unique, and
Ultimately, you're the CEO of your own health.
I love that analogy, CEO of your own health.
That's something everyone should remember.
No matter what kind of medical decision they're facing,
I couldn't agree more.
knowledge is power.
And when it comes to your health, it's always worth taking the time to ask questions, understand the options.
And make informed choices.
This deep dive has certainly given us, and hopefully all of you listening, a lot to think about.
It's amazing how even a routine procedure like cataract surgery can involve such complex considerations.
We encourage you to continue exploring, asking questions, and being your own best health advocate.
Until next time, keep those eyes healthy and those minds curious.